Let's get festive with an elf or a Santa hat using that wheat stitch texture that is so gorgeous. Stick with me. Let's start off by talking about the yarn I'm going to be using for today's project. I'm going to be using the Malabrigo in Fresco y Seco for the green, and then the red I'm using the Cereza. Now the thing about this yarn is you can pick any color. They also have a white. I've made some with the white of more traditional Santa hats. I'm going to be doing a more elf hat today. But there are so many gorgeous colors of Malabrigo. Be sure to play around with that. I also find that the ivy color of green works great for this, and as well as the Ravelry red. And then you've got your whites and your creams and your naturals that look good too. So I'll be using these two colors on camera today. I'm going to be using the green for the brim and the red for the top part of the hat. And then of course I am putting a pom-pom on it because that will be so cute. And then the other items you will need is a yarn needle to weave in those ends, a stitch marker to keep track of your rounds or rows, scissors to fasten off those yarn ends, and then a 4mm hook for the brim of the hat and a 5mm hook for the body. And then I also want to talk about some yarn subs. You'll see some of my hats were made in Malabrigo, and some of them were actually made with the Berroco vintage. This one is a gorgeous yarn as well. It has a beautiful color and it's really, really soft. I used this on quite a few hats with a green that's not pictured here. This is one of the darker greens, but I have listed this as a substitute yarn for Malabrigo as well. And then of course, if you want to substitute with any worsted weight yarn, feel free. Just be sure to check the gauge because this is a sized item. So we want to make sure that it will fit our head. Now we're going to go ahead and jump right in, and we're going to be starting with that brim. Now, before we jump into those stitch counts today, I want to talk about changing those colors a bit and the different ways that you can create this hat. So this one is done with the Berroco vintage. It is really cute and elf-like. Then I did this one with the Malabrigo green with the white. I love all the combinations of these because they're so much fun to do, but you can also do this as a solid or a striped. Now, the only difference between working these rounds with two colors versus one is every single crochet round you are going to change colors on the single crochet rounds and then change colors on the wheat stitch style puff rounds. Now, I want to show you, I carried my yarn up on the inside here, so I did not fasten off after each round. We're simply going to carry that yarn up if we are doing it that way. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into working up this hat. Now, one more quick tool that I really like for connecting these pom-poms is a pom-pom button. It makes it a lot easier to put your pom-pom on the hat when you're finished, and it's also removable. So you can take the pom-pom on and off as you want. So these pom-pom buttons are great for this as well. Now, for this hat, you can do two styles of brims. You can do a fold-over brim, which means we're going to be making the brim a little bit longer to start. Or you can do one that is not a fold over brim and it's just your simple basic brim that is shorter. And I have included both sizes in the instructions, but for this cute little newborn size I'll be showing on camera today, I'm going to be doing a fold over brim. Now, all of the stitch instructions are in the written pattern, however you choose to view that. So if you're making a different size, or if I missed some stitch counts out loud on this newborn pattern, just know that all the stitch counts and row counts are written in the pattern. So we're going to go ahead and get started by creating a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. And then for the size newborn, I'm going to chain 13. Now, after chaining 13, I like to tighten down that last chain, and we are going to go through the second chain from the hook and work a single crochet stitch. Now, all this is going to be done with the 4mm because we are working that brim. And so we will single crochet into the remaining chains across, which means for row 1 of this size with this brim, we will have a total of 12 stitches. And that will remain the stitch count for the fold up brim for the newborn size. Now, after working across for those 12 stitches for row 1, we are going to turn our work, chain 1, and then working in the back loop only, we will single crochet into each across. But I will tell you, when you're working something like this, that's this long of a ribbing, If you start your first and last stitch through both loops, it makes the edges a little bit tighter and cleaner. So then in between, we're single crocheting in that back loop only all the way across for those 12 stitches. And as I get to the end of row 2, I am also going to work through both loops for that very last stitch, just as an extra tip here to make the edges of this a bit more clean. Now we're going to turn our work, chain 1, and then repeat row 2. And then we're going to keep repeating row 2, so just single crocheting in each of the back loops only all the way across until we have the amount of rows we need for the size that we are making. And this is for the short brim or the fold over brim. And now that we have our brim, it's stretchy, which is what we want. We want this brim to be very stretchy. And you can measure it to see if it's the approximate length or height that you like. I included some of those dimensions in the pattern, but they're approximate. If you're off slightly, that's okay, as long as it has that stretch. Sometimes it's really hard to meet the gauge of ribbing because ribbing has such a different type of fabric to it. So it can like move around so much that sometimes it's harder to measure. But as long as it's closer, you try it along the head of the intended person, you can wrap it around, then it will work just fine. So now we are going to join the last row worked with our first row that we did. And I'm going to bring those edges together, and then we are simply going to be seaming across here to join into a circular hat-like shape. So to do this, we are going to start by chaining 1, and we're going to go through the back loop only of the stitch of our current row, and then also insert our hook into the back loop only on the first row that we crocheted. And then we will simply yarn over and slip stitch that together. And we'll work that all the way down, joining the back loop only from the row closest to us and the back loop only from the row farthest away, yarn over and slip stitch. And we'll do that all the way across for all of the stitches on the brim. Now that we have worked all those stitches together, we are going to set aside our 4mm hook, and we're going to be using our 5mm hook for the remainder of this pattern. Now what we're going to do next is I'm going to work along the top edge of this beanie, and we are going to work in the same color that we just used for the brim to help hide these stitches. Now we can go to the next steps and we can start working along this top edge, but it won't look as sharp and as clean as I'm going to show you how to do it here for when we are changing colors, if we are changing colors on the round after. Even if you're not changing colors, I still like the look of this. So we're going to start by chaining 1, and then we are going to single crochet along the first row edge of this beanie. So let's do 1 single crochet. Now you should put a stitch marker here at the beginning of the round for every round for this pattern because it will make it easier. And now we are going to take our crochet hook and we are going to go through this left bar here. So we're going to insert through the left bar of this previous single crochet we made, and then through the space along the next row. So we're going through the space along the edge of this next row, and then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop and pull through the first loop on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2. And then we're going to be repeating those steps again, and we're going to do that all the way around. We're going to be single crocheting 1 stitch per edge, but we'll be doing it in this way that makes a really nice clean edge. So we'll go through the left bar of the previous single crochet stitch, and then through the space on the next row, yarn over, pull through that row and through the first loop on the hook, yarn over and pull through the remaining 2. And as you work this, it will get more comfortable, but what we're doing is we're creating a really nice line along here. If you don't want to do this, you can always just slip stitch all the way around for this round, but this creates a nice line along the edge here at the bottom of the stitch, and then it's setting us up for the stitch count for the next round when we're working the body stitches. Now our stitch count is not going to change here. It's going to be the same amount of stitches as the row, and that's going to be the same stitches for the body stitch count when we get started on this body section of the hat. So I'm going to complete this all the way around and then come on back. Now, once we've worked all the way around, we are going to be slip stitching to join, but since I am changing colors here, I am going to slip stitch with my new color, which for me, for this hat, I'm going to be changing to red and then doing a solid red. So I'm going to pull through my new color and slip stitch to join. Now I'm going to go ahead and fasten off the color green because I'm not going to be using it anymore. However, if you were going to be using the green again, do not fasten it off. If you were going to use it, say, for every other round, don't worry about fastening that off right now. But I'm going to change to red. So you can really do any color combination. You'll see lots of color combinations in the ones I've completed. So you can use your imagination and change colors on the rounds as you want. But for stripes, we'll be using one color for the single crochet rounds for the next 2 rounds, and then we'll switch colors for those weave stitch rounds if we were doing stripes. Now that we have joined, we are going to turn our work and we will chain 1. So starting round 1, so this is round 1 for the body of the hat, we have the wrong side of the fabric facing us, which is what we want. And we are going to single crochet in the back loop only of the first stitch. Now I just want to note, this is a chain 1, this is a slip stitch to join, this is your first stitch. So then we will single crochet in the back loop, marking that very first stitch of the round. If you've not done the sweet stitch in the round, it's really a good idea to mark the beginning of each round as we go. And now I'm going to single crochet in the back loop only for each stitch around. And round 1 and round 2 will be the same instructions. So I'm going to complete round 1 and we'll come back and talk about round 2. Now at the end of round 1, we will move that stitch marker. And then we are going to slip stitch to join and turn our work. And now we will chain 1 and repeat round 2. It will be a repeat of round 1. So we're just going to single crochet in the back loop only for each stitch around, marking the first stitch of the round. And every once in a while, it's a good idea to check your stitch counts to make sure that we are on track. Now at the end of round 2, we are going to move our stitch marker and join to the very first stitch of the round with a slip stitch. I like to tighten that down just a little. And now we're going to turn our work and start round 3. And for round 3, we will chain 1, and then we are going to skip the very first stitch in this round and single crochet into the next. And then working back into that skip stitch, we will yarn over, insert into the skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And you'll want to pull these loops as high as the first loop on the hook. Then yarn over, insert that same skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we have 5 loops on our hook, and we will yarn over and pull through 4, and then yarn over and pull through 2, and that completes that modified puff stitch. So for this round, we skipped 1 and we single crocheted 1, and that is the first stitch of our round. We can mark it, and then we worked a modified puff stitch. And we're going to be repeating that. So we're going to skip 1 and single crochet into the next, and then going back to that skip stitch, we will work a modified puff stitch. And that's going to be a repeat all the way around for round 3. So once again, skip 1 and single crochet in the next, work a modified puff stitch back into that skip stitch, and work that all the way around for round 3. And now that we've worked all the way around for round 3, we are going to move our stitch marker and join to that first stitch of the round with a slip stitch, and then turn our work. And round 4 is simply a repeat of round 3. So we'll be doing the exact same thing we did on round 3, only we're just working into the puff stitches and the single crochet stitches of this round. So we'll start by doing a chain 1, and then we'll skip the first stitch and single crochet into the next, and go ahead and mark that stitch with a stitch marker. And then going back to that skip stitch, we will do a modified puff stitch. So when we're working this round, when we skip a stitch and single crochet, we're single crocheting into the single crochet from the row below. And then when we work back to the skip stitch, we're working into the same puff stitch from the round below. So we're just going to work that all the way around for round 4, and that's a repeat of round 3. Now at the end of round 4, we will slip stitch to join. And if you were working in stripes, you would want to change back to the single crochet round colors. So you would want to insert your hook into the first stitch and then yarn over with the new color and pull it through to slip stitch to join. I'll be doing this one in a solid, so I'm not changing colors, but if I were, I would just be carrying them up on the inside and changing every 2 rounds. So now I'm going to slip stitch to join, and we're going to be repeating rounds 1 through 4 until we have the amount of rounds that we need until we start decreasing. So we're just going to turn our work, chain 1, and we would be repeating round 1, which would be single crocheting in the back loop only for each stitch around. And I'll just keep repeating that 4-row repeat until it has the height that we need for the size that we're working. And then we'll start that slow decrease to make that elf or Santa style hat. So I'm going to work up the rounds we need for the newborn size through round 12, and then I'll come on back. Now, after working through those 12 rounds, we are ready to start decreasing the top of this. Now, if you don't want to be counting every single round, that's okay. I'm going to give you some tips to keep track of the stitches and decreasing. So from here on out, we will be decreasing 2 stitches on every single crochet round, and then working the wheat stitch rounds, the puff stitch rounds without any decreasing. Now to do this, we want to alternate where we are decreasing. So if we look at the top of this hat and we were to decrease here and here for 1 round, on the next round, we want to go opposite and decrease at these other points. The reason why is it will keep it more in a cylinder versus having almost like a flat seam, of a decreased seam. It will keep it a bit more round. Now I have the stitch counts written down for every single size, but if you don't want to count every round, you could just place 2 decreases on rounds where you think that they will go. It doesn't have to be exact. And actually sometimes when it's not exact, it's kind of a little bit better. So we are going to be joining. So I've worked through round 12 for the newborn size. I'm going to join my stitch with the slip stitch and then turn my work. And we are going to chain 1. Now for this round, for round 13, we'll want to start our round with a decrease. So to do an invisible decrease, what I like to do is work through the back loops only of the next 2 stitches, and we're going to insert the first stitch through the back loop only, rotate our hook, and insert through the second stitch through the back loop only, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 to complete that decrease. So we've decreased by 1. We're going to go ahead and place a stitch marker into the first stitch of this round. And now we're ready to start round 13, and we will be decreasing on this round. But since we want to place our decreases slightly off center when we do each round, so for our very first round, we're actually going to be single crocheting some and doing our decrease to keep it on these sides, and the next round it will be on these sides of the hat. And this is what I mean by that. We'll walk through in detail. So we're going to start round 13 by single crocheting in the back loop only for the very first 11 stitches. Now after single crocheting in the back loop only for 11 stitches, we are going to single crochet 2 together. And the way I like to do this is through those back loops only. We're going to enter the first back loop of the next stitch, rotate our hook, and enter the back loop only of the stitch after that. And then we will yarn over and pull through both of those loops, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2. And that does 1 decrease, and it's a little bit more invisible. And now we're going to single crochet in the back loop for 22 stitches. Now after single crocheting in the back loop only for 22 stitches, we are going to do another decrease. So we're going to work through those back loops. So we'll go through the first stitch, rotate our hook, and go through the back loop of the second stitch, and then yarn over and pull through both those stitches, and then yarn over and pull through 2. So now we've done our second decrease of the round, and we will finish out round 13 by single crocheting in the back loop only for the remaining 11 stitches in this round. Now at the end of round 13, we will join to the first stitch of the round with a slip stitch, and then turn our work, and then we're going to chain 1. Now for this round, we're going to start by decreasing. So we're going to do a single crochet 2 together for the first 2 stitches of round 14. We're going to work through those back loops and complete that decrease. grab your stitch marker. Be sure to mark the first stitch of each round to keep track of them. And then working in the back loops only, we will single crochet for 21 stitches in the back loop only. And now for round 14, after single crocheting 21 in the back loop, we will do another decrease. So that's our second decrease of this round. And then we will single crochet in the back loop only for the remaining 21 stitches around for round 14. And that way we are staggering the 2 decreases for each round when we do our decreases on those single crochet rounds. Now at the end of round 14, we're going to move our stitch marker, slip stitch to join, turn our work and chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 rounds, repeating those puff stitch rounds. And that's the pattern we're going to be working in. So for every single crochet round, as we decrease here, we're going to be doing 2 decreases, alternating where we place them on this part of the hat. So we'll do it on maybe this side of the hat for the first decrease round, and then this sides of the hat for the second decrease round. That way we're alternating where we decrease on those single crochet rounds to give it a better shape. And we're going to be doing that, and then we'll do the puff stitch rounds. We'll keep in that 4-row repeat, decreasing on those single crochet rounds by 2 stitches each single crochet round until we get down to 8 stitches. And I have written out every single round for the ad-free PDF, as well as placed in, this is what will really help you, is a hook and tally for every single size. Now, this is a really great tool to have when you are trying to watch a show and do decreases. So you can follow that pattern of decreasing 2 stitches per every single crochet round. And if you really want to kind of check out but easily keep track, we can use this hook and tally. So we have already completed rounds 13 and rounds 14. And now we're doing rounds 15 and 16. So the darker circles will indicate rounds that are single crochet rounds in the back loop only, and that we will decrease by 2 rounds on those single crochet rounds. I've included the round number so you can keep track of what round you are on, as well as underneath the decrease rounds, this is the stitch count that you will be at the end of that round, so you know that your stitch count is right on track. This is an easy way to just kind of keep track as you're decreasing this hat to the point. So no matter what size you're working in that ad-free PDF, I've written out every single round, and I've included that hook and tally as an extra tool for that ad-free PDF. But what you need to know to complete it is just decreasing by 2 stitches every single crochet round as we bring this down to a point. And it will begin to taper quite quickly. And this is what it will look like as it tapers and it gets to the end. I'm going to complete this part of the hat and then come back and show you how to finish it out as well as add this pom-pom. Now, once you have worked these all the way down and decreased to the top of this till you have the amount of stitches left that we need, we are going to go ahead and take our scissors and fasten off the end here. Now, our next step is to grab our yarn needle. We're going to take the end of this yarn and place it on our yarn needle, and then we're going to close the top of this by looping through the remaining stitches. I like to loop through just the front loop or the back loop. It really does not matter. But we're just going to loop through the front of the back loop of each stitch around. So you're just going through that loop and we're looping through for each stitch around. Now, after looping through, we are going to pull the end closed and then weave it in. I'm going to make sure that I leave a little bit of space in the end here where I'm putting a pom-pom on for that last closing thing. I'm not going to pull it too tight. I'm just going to work in my end here and weave it in, because I'll need to be able to stick my crochet hook right through the center here to attach the pom-pom. Now, once you are ready to put on the pom-pom, we're going to slide the hook through the heart shape there, the center of this pom-pom button. And then we are going to go through our hat and we are going to put our hook through the inside of the hat all the way to the top part of the hat through the inside. So I'm just going to work it up through the inside of the hat here until we get all the way through the top. Sometimes I have to hold it with my fingers so it doesn't poke through, like hold the end of my hook with my fingers. And then we are going to come right through the center up here. So we're going to come right through the center. I'm going to pop up here. And then we're going to grab our pom-pom. We're going to place our pom-pom through the loop. And then holding tight to that, we are going to pull that loop through the top of our hat. And then you can flip this hat inside out, holding tight to not let go of that loop. And we're going to be pulling this hat from the inside out. And now we can get some space here where we can see that button. And then we're going to take our string around this button and loop it. Pull it all the way through and take out your crochet hook. And then this will hold that button there nice and tight. And then that pom-pom is sitting on this other side. So now we're going to flip it back inside out. And just like that, we have the cutest little elf or Santa hat for all the helpers this Christmas season in so many different sizes and options. You can really get creative with this one. You can make any color you want. It's really a diverse pattern and lots of fun. I hope you've really enjoyed getting festive this year, and come back and join me again for a new project. Happy holidays.